Okay, we're going to talk about how you find the length of a segment on a coordinate plane. I'm going to show you how we can use the coordinates. Just based off of coordinates, we can find out how long a segment is using a little formula. But before we get to the formula, let me just show you some concepts here. So this video is just going to be on how we find the length of a vertical, meaning up and down segment, or a horizontal, being laying down, basically, right? So let me grab my segment tool, and length of a segment is typically just going to be counting units, right? So how long is this segment right here? Well, we can think about translations. If say this endpoint right here translated to this endpoint, it would have had to have gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 units to the right. Since it's a segment, we don't have an arrow, the vector showing us a direction. We could interpret this as a translation of this endpoint translating 10 units to the left to get to this one. So horizontal segments, you can just count each unit, and then that's how far it went, right? Same deal with vertical. If I were to say maybe take this segment here, we could just look and say vertically we can just count the sides of our little squares on our grid, right? Our scale of 1, 2, 3, 4. So this would have a length of 4, all right? Now, that's fine and dandy, but what happens when we get, say, put axes to it, and now each point has a coordinate. So, for example, let's say that this point here, this point would be at -2, because we have to go 2 to the left, and then we have to go up 1. So this ordered pair, the location of that point would be -2, right? 1. This point here would be -2, and then we'd have to go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So looking at the ordered pair, since the x coordinates are the same on both points, that means that we had to go to the left 2, right, for both of them. That means that the points are on a vertical line here. So if you look at the y coordinate, we had to go up 5 to get to this point, and we had to go up 1 to get to this point. So really, if we look at the coordinates, the length is just going to be 5 minus 1, right? There's our length of 4. It's just the difference between what we had to go up. We had to go up 5 for this one, up for 1, so the difference between the 2 points would be a distance of 4 units, right? Same deal with horizontal. But now let's talk about what if we have a segment, and for instance, oops, turn my Smart Ink off. For instance, let's say that we have points that are on opposite sides of an axis, right? How long is this segment? Well, if we look at ordered pairs, point A is sitting at -2, 5, just like in our other example. I'm going to grab my pen tool and I'm going to write this here. So this is at -2, 5. And since it's horizontal, it should have the same y coordinate, right? This should be some x coordinate 5, right? Same distance we had to go up from the origin. But we had to go over to 9. So the location for B is going to be 9, 5. So there's B. So now when you look at this, because this is a horizontal line, notice that our y coordinates are going to be the same, and they're always going to be the same for a horizontal line. But the x coordinates tells us length. Well, if we look at the y-axis here, from the y-axis over to this endpoint B here, it looks like we would have to, there's a distance of 9 units, right? And if we look at this part over here, there's a distance of 2 units. So this segment, isn't it really going to be the length of this left segment and then add to it the length of this right segment? So really, this segment has a length of 11 units. So how do we get 11 based off of our endpoints, this 9 and -2? Well, before in this example that we had here, we just took since this was vertical and the x coordinates are going to be the same, we just took the y coordinates and found the difference between them, subtracted the 5 we had to go up, subtract off that 1, left us with the difference of 4 right here. Well, let's look at that subtraction deal here. Let's take, say, this x coordinate, since it's a horizontal line, 9. Let's subtract off the other x coordinate. So we're subtracting a -2, right? Because that is the x coordinate of this point. So 9 minus -2, and when we subtract an opposite, remember subtraction is the same thing as adding the opposite of a -2, which is a +2. So now we have 9 plus 2, which there's 11. What if I were to take this x coordinate first, -2, and subtract off it the other x coordinate of our point, which is 9? Well, -2 minus 9, they're both negative. Remember, subtraction is, we're subtracting a +9, so let's add the opposite, and now we're adding two negatives, right, which is -11. So in coordinates, we get either way, whether we took 9 minus -2 or -2 minus 9, we get 11 and we get -11, depending on which order we decided to subtract the coordinates. With distance, though, we have to understand that distance is always going to be a positive value. You only travel a positive distance. You never really travel a negative distance. So what we do to handle that is we apply the absolute value concept to distance. We say, all right, well, based off the coordinates, if you got -11, that's just like saying you're traveling 11 units in the negative direction, which would be to the left, right? But the distance itself is a positive. So remember, when we take the absolute value of any number, whether it's negative or positive, we always just get that positive value out. We get the absolute value of the number, not the sign of the number, but the value of the number. So just understand that distance is always positive. Okay? Let's try another one here. So let's do a vertical segment, and let's say that B is going to be at 5, 4, and let's put A down here at 5, -3. So let's look at this. We have to go over 5, and we have to go up 4, right? Or translate the point from the origin to this location. Same deal, right? So the location, if you think about ordered pair, we had to go over 5, and we had to go up 4. If this was a vector, we would just use the pointy brackets, but it's an ordered pair. The location of this point, we need to know the difference in our notation here. Okay, and A is going to be at 5, -3. So to find the length of this, even if we didn't have the picture here, if we just had ordered pairs, since the x coordinates are the same, that means that we had to go over the same number. That makes it a vertical line because our x coordinates aren't different. Otherwise, B or A would be at a different horizontal spot. But because our y coordinates are different, then what I can do to find the length is just take one of the y coordinates, like 4, subtract off the other one, and it happens to be a -3. And we need to know that when you subtract, you're adding the opposite of a -3, which is now a +3. So this segment has a length of 7. If we were to take -3 minus the other y coordinate, in this case a +4, -3 minus 4 is a -7, but distance can't be negative, so we apply that absolute value concept even to a positive, and absolute value of a positive or negative just gives us the value of that number. Okay, so in this case this would have a length of 7. From 4 we'd have to go down 4 and then go down 3 more, so a whole distance of 7. So generally speaking, to find your coordinates, if we talk about a vertical segment, right, kind of like the picture we have here, in a vertical segment, just know that x coordinates are always the same. Okay, are same. So what we do then is we subtract the y coordinates. So I'm going to say take the y coordinate of one of your points, right? So I'll just say y sub 1 of your first point, 1 point. You're going to subtract off the y coordinate of the other point. And we'll just make sure that we're going to take the absolute value of it. Okay, so that'll give us the positive value of the difference in the y coordinates. Okay? If we had a horizontal segment, it's just the opposite. So we'll just say horizontal. Your y coordinates are always going to be the same. Are same. So then we subtract our x-coordinate. So you take the x-coordinate of some point and you just subtract off the x-coordinate of another point. We'll take the absolute value just to ensure that we get a positive distance. Okay. So these are the little formulas that we're going to use. Okay, to find the length of a vertical or a horizontal segment. So submit the quest, guys, and then we will put that together when we talk about the distance formula.